Pepper, Coca-Cola, Sprite, Prite, Prite. No. Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper, Sprite. Copite. Copite. Yeah, that actually sounds good. Kitty, Neko, Inoue, Inari. Nayari. Pillow, cover, blanket. Pocket. Pocket. Jesus, this is a lot harder than I thought it would be.
The following material is owned by the respective rights holders. In this episode's case, the rights are held by Toei. Right, please support the official release in any means necessary if possible.
Ugh. Let's get to this. Hello, welcome to another Toku Ramblings. This time we are talking about the Kamen Rider O's films, starting with movie War. Yes, it sucks. It's not good. It's not great. I can at least give some credence to the 2010s movie, or because I at least liked Begin Nights and more or less didn't understand Decade's portion until I finished watching Decade, and I didn't like it but this is an issue of one portion is not what it should be, and the other falls into an issue of it's fine, but I could be doing about this. So, O's portion is about Kogami for some reason deciding to revive Odun. Oduna. Okay, because he apparently found his final resting place. Even though a Google search can tell you he was buried at Kenkun Shrine, but what? Anywho, the revive. Naka soon meets up with Eiji, and the two become quick friends and until Nobunaga remembers he's Nobunaga. While in Futo, Shotaro and Philip are fighting a pterodactyl. Yami and soon are held by Ryu, without his driver memory, because Akiko has decided to revert back to her early instances of being the worst character ever. And Molas doesn't want Ryu in any more danger now that they're getting married. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. Anywho, the Yummy overhears her and uses the memory. Don't ask me. And we more or less get a backstory episode for Shokichi Rumi, or Kamen Rider Skull as he was in the initial movie war. So, here's the problem with O's portion. It's really not O's. Or more specifically, it's an early version of O's, and generally Toshiki Inui's sort of standard writing things. So, TVH was a traveling hermit who extended his help out to those who he believed needed help. And was also sort of a deconstructor of the selfless hero who does something because he thinks it's right. Granted, since Kobayashi has stated some distaste with early show writers. But he was smart enough to outsmart Ankh and use him to get what he wanted, which was the ability to help others. He was not the same Vincent de Paul who handed out 5,000 yen bills to people who say they need it. But that's what he's doing in the beginning of the film, just handing out bills money to people because they say they need it. Now, look, I don't know why this was written by Toshiki. And for Dak said, it really doesn't matter. Who wrote this shouldn't really matter, but it's just so odd of everyone they more or less could have pulled for. It was a no, and not like Nobuhiro more. Shoji Yonam. More Kento Shinoyama. Or Nobuhiro Mori. Did I already say him? Kenichi Hasegawa, that's what I wanted to say. Yes, they could have probably not been involved with that. Right, but I always heard rumors that apparently the two didn't each other. And yes, this could come down to the fact that Lasanoe was just told to write the film. So Kobayashi could focus on the show because was literally writing she was writing a new series every year for Toei at this point. But they literally could have picked anyone. So, but let's take the fact that more or less I knew he is not the main writer, and more or less let's go on about other problems with the show, like how Ankh really isn't a character either. He's kind of just there. Just focusing on the monster who's killing people rather than, becoming whole again. He was only a nominal hero who helped because he wanted his medals, and more or less AG kind of forced him to more or less assist him, and he was a hand. And I get this was more or less crafted from a very, very early draft of a script, but people would know what this series was since this came out near the end of the year, so the series was likely 12, 11 episodes in. This feels very piloty, and not in a good way. And then there's Oda, who's fine as the opposite of film. AG was a man of so ambition and desire. Iris, who's inability to feel intent. And he sort of lays into that Gary Stu territory with how he's able to fix an issue of a computer program that isn't out yet just based on information he gleaned from books and library. Ways that are God knows how old. Again, this could lean into this film doesn't know when it takes place. Like it could potentially take place over a long period of time, but again, I really just put this in the non-canon thing because nothing about this film is ever pulled up again, and more less certain things it brings up is never brought up again. Despite that, he does have some not very well acted dialogue. I think the actor is fine, but I don't think the dialogue he's given in certain segments is fine. For example, after taking over the company that he initially helped, he has a celebration dinner, and they talk about the girl he chose to win. He chose to bring up versus an ancestor, one of the people who betrayed him before. It's ham-fisted, just awkward exposition that doesn't feel natural at all, especially coming from a series that I feel was well written and good dialogue. Oh yeah, that girl. She's just an object. She is literally a plot manga, having a complete Oda's collection of. And probably has the other worst delivery of the. Where she is all over the place with him. Motions. Yeah, we could get that she more or less lost a lot of things. Anywho, there's just some other small issues. Like, the Greed just show up for a few minutes. And just bring up Giro. Now, who's Giro? You may ask. Yeah, I don't know either. I'm guessing he was supposed to originally be the Kyoryu Greed or Dinosaur Greed before Maki was selected, and just comes off as a what could have been trivia, but it's utterly pointless because again, Giro doesn't show up in the main series. Anywho, we get a writer preview of Oda becoming which sort of throws a wrench into the whole mumps thing since there are only really two of them. The finished one, the prototype, and this can't be the prototype since it does have the red rings around it. So this has to be the official birth story that could not be gave to Oda because as he shows a lot of desires. And look, as far as sneak peek, they're fairly inconsequential to the stories, and more or less is just here because new form. Look, I kind of am rambling here, but this just doesn't feel like O's. It feels like a pilot script that got put into a movie because less there needed to be an O's portion for the movie. Or since Kobayashi was too busy to write it, they just didn't know the preview stuff and let's have him write from there. That's just the issue, and I can more or less simplify it down to that. The movie war court, God, it's so tongue twisted. The movie war court portion of O's can just simply put, he said, it isn't O's. Like 2010 doubles portion is tattooed the saving grace about this whole thing, but it's sort of ruined because less Akiko is being well, extremely, what's a nice way to put this without more or less cursing? A bitch. She's being incredibly selfish in how she treats the guys still being writers, even though the Dopon issue is not fixed, even though the museum is gone. But the annoying thing is, it makes sense. Keep in mind that people she has been close to who are common writers died. Yes, I know Philip came back, but she lost a good friend, and how in effect it showed. Oh, so she was probably just tired of people, especially since since the two were getting married. It makes sense why he would be against the two fighting. Granted, it doesn't really how since viewers who weren't on her guts. It's hard to begin with, so it's easy not to feel for her. Skull's story is very much a noir story, a more torn down, sorrowful tale compared to the more comedic double stuff. And I think it works here with the character, and more or less, Tsukichi's just that kind of cool uncle you kind of wish you. But we get more depth from him in this from his relationships and how he's not really willing to use Genshin innately, which kind of more or less ties in with how he's not willing to use the Lost Driver. But this is the same thing I have with Eternal. I think the story's fine, but it's mostly there if you want more. For example, two new characters that were introduced with. Look, if they're not around in the main series, they're not gonna last through, or more or less something will happen to them. So Kichi's partner works similarly to Philip, but again, the fact that he isn't in the main series tells you one of two things. He's dead, or he's the main villain that ends up dying at the end, which ends up being the way he's caught is. Yeah. You think you would hire a character Tiki? That's why he wouldn't be cut since, his detective friend is the one in charge of the case. And Melissa is your standard femme fatale of noirs. So is that our character ends up in a worse place than the story begins. I do like the use of Spyro that as this tribute to the show era, Now Double really did feel like it was classic show in of ways, but unlike there's a dude tribute show, and they really didn't use ever better as a Nate Ville. The Fat Dill pun is, for the most part, forgettable. Her death is honestly one of the more funny things when she asks for Skull's help, but Skull's just like, cat. Here. But I really wished we more or less got more time with the main double cast, since, with the exception of more or less the next movie war, and by extension the next one we are talking about, that this is technically the last time we see the full cast together. Oh yeah, I forgot about the return movies that came out during Forza's run, but this was, by all accounts, the last time we were going to potentially get a story from the double cast, since Philip Spector would go on to bigger things and less. Why was this not a V cinema? I don't mind this story, but it's one of those things where I wish we got something else entirely different. Oh, yeah, and if you're wondering how these two plots connect, at the end of Elsa's portion, the medals are taken by Pterodactyl, Yummy, and the medal and the memory make Kamen Rider Core, who is just generic. I'm super powerful. I'm the only ruler of this world. I know I haven't gotten there yet, but I feel like this is a lesser drive situation. Since more or less those two technically have very, very divergent plots, and unless in that case one side just consumes the other for a more powerful affair. Anywho, transformation fight. They get their butt handed to them for most of the initial portion before going underground to find the crystallized form of Earth energy, and you gotta be thankful that was the right place they drilled to. Ryu more or less gives a speech about more or less being ready to more or less protect her. Aaron is joined by Shintaro as work to kill the pterodactyl. Yummy, we got our preview attached the door forming more or less a defeat car. Philip and Shelter will return to the future, while AG somehow ends up in Rio de Janeiro. Now, even though I don't think Japan and Brazil are opposite one another. No. Akikawa and Rio get married, and Melissa show off to get the message so Kichi left, where she walks down the aisle with him in spirit. This is disappointing to say the least. There is some worth in it with the double portion, but that O's portion is it is not great unless you really want to finish out the doubles history and see what a potential early version of O's is. This is probably one worth skipping. And unfortunately, that disappointment does not end there as we move on to our second film of these three. Let's Go Kamen Rider, or as I like to call it, Superhero Tyson Zero, because, look, this is a Tyson movie. It has all the trappings of all of them. It's written by Shoji Yonemura. It involves some kind of legacy, and has a whole bunch of plot contrivances that make this thing go on way longer than it should. So, the film follows Eiji as he's fighting Imagines, because I don't know why they're fighting him and not just trying to go for some. And unless when they go to some kid, let's hop back into the past. Eiji runs into Kotaro Nagami, the grandson of Deno's protagonist, Ryota Nagami, since the main actor was more let's getting really serious about acting and more let's throwing in a whole lot of serious things. Seriously, just look up Takeru Sato's filmography. It is astounding what this guy has done. Anyway, back at the plot. Kotaro runs a match where he pinpointed And we'll also travel back to 1970. And for some reason, they bring Eiji and Ankh along because a movie needs to happen. And explicitly tell them not to leave. Guess what Ankh does? He leaves trying to go grab the Evercore most from his foe. Okay, but Eiji stomps him and Kotaro kills the three. Maul imagines, right? Movie's over, right? Of course it's not. See, when Kotaro destroyed the last Imagine, Ankh was caught in the blast and dropped a singular soul metal, which... That singular soul metal allowed Shocker to take over the world. Well, in the modern era. Now with the original Kamen Riders 1 and 2 fighting for them. So now Oz and Netto must return to 1971 to fix the timeline and stop Shocker. Oh, I'm sorry. I misread my own script. I should more specifically say, Deno goes back in time to fix the timeline, but the only representation of O's being Ankh, who didn't learn his lesson the first time. The first time because more or less we need some kind of comic relief. Essentially, the second act is more crossover between Deno and the original Kamen Riders. Oh, yeah, and I forgot to mention, Eiji met two kids from the bad future who come... because kids were sort of a big thing because unless they were the Kamen Rider kids. Alright, this is not the only major instance of fan service. The big thing is the amount of returning villains as cameos or minor... villain roles, and if you've been a fan for a while, you'll likely pick up a lot of things and go, it's that. But if I haven't made clear yet, this film's not good either. Let's get this out of the way. The setup is dumb, so why would Eiji and Ankh be allowed to get on the Den liner? Yes, they're writers too, but there would be no reason for them to go back. Just say, look, this is our issue, let us deal with it, and then you go back to doing your thing. And Eiji would have known Ankh would have tried to do something morally wrong that would benefit for him. And look, Ankh decides to call a tide pair. Because, heaven forbid, that he's patient. And even that you'd think he'd be smart about the fact that he would essentially be causing a time paradox by changing history by us doing that. But I guess desires won out. If the tone of my voice hasn't told you anything, I don't think this film's good either. And the setup is dumb. Like, why would the Deno crew allow Eiji and Ankh to go back with them? Why not just say, look, this is our issue, let us deal with it, you don't have to come back with us. But instead they come back and, shock of all shock, Ankh's desires get the better of him, and why would he not think that more or less doing this would potentially cause a time paradox? Ankh, has he not watched Back to the Future, or any kind of time travel movie where you screw with the past, you mess with the present? And why wasn't Eiji keeping a closer eye on him considering how dang imperative he tried to get his medals? But did he forget that more or less he was a floating arm he could leave without noticing? So in other words, the entire film is more... That's because Ankh is being a greedy idiot. Also, this entire story just has too many things that happen to move the plot along. Because again, it seems like the film ends when the double writers show. Because they... Here's more or less when this double writer show, and it's believed that Shocker was able to get away with the real self, but let's reveal them. Lest they tricked them by giving him a fake medal and over transmitter that allowed them to more or less go there. And that more or less brings up the obvious question of, wait, How could they have had a fake metal created so quickly? Like that. It was barely there for a day. And whilst I'm realizing something, I'm clearly putting more thought into this than the writer did. Yeah. But then, turns out the metal that they were initially fighting over was fake, and Shocker had it the entire time. Time more or less leads to a stupid Judgment Day is inevitable as the past refuses to change, and then the entire third arc is just full of Deus Ex Machinas, like, oh no, our heroes have been captured and will soon be executed alongside the rest of humanity. Hooray, the double riders were not brainwashed and were waiting for the right time. Oh no, they're still outnumbered. Hooray, V3 and the rest of the primary riders show up too for, I'll admit, kind of a decent scene where more decent view over history of writers up to that point, and I'll give credit a decent cameo from Double, but it's just like it's not natural. It's just things happen to move the plot along when they realize they're kind of stuck. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, more or less there's this unique form that's made up of the new Shocker metal, and then metal pulls out of Momotaro because the second here, the nonsense, the system, the final. Well, and then there's the ending, which is... I'm starting to get a headache thinking about it. Yeah, let's discuss some of the aesthetic stuff beforehand. I think the Shocker Greed looks nice. I think the Gas Mask is a nice reference to the reboot films. Not a fan of the colors. It looks like a certainly bodily function. The Tamashi form is underwhelming. Just Taka's helmet with rather large shoulder pads and golden boots. It feels less like a combo than what it is, and just a combo with different metals. Considering that the form is just a mishmash of metals, that's saying something. But just none of the action things really stand out of sight from the big coming together of all the writers. It's kind of disappointing that neither Ichiko or Nigo show up. It's only just voiceover work, but seeing as how they more or less were going back to 1970s, and I don't think age reversion technology was at its height yet, it sort of makes sense. Again, it's mostly just smaller things, and then for some reason a bunch of other old Toei Toku shows show up to help. That's neat. But yeah, the ending. Spoilers if you care or for some reason want to watch this. Yeah, they beat Shocker and let's save history and everyone's happy. But wait, Naoki was stuck in the past because he jumped out to help the other riders against the Shocker Grade. What happened to him? You ready? Someone thought this was an okay plot point. Someone thought this was a good idea. So, after the riders were defeated, he and the rest of the Kamen Rider kids hid their uniforms and went into hiding, and he formed a relationship with the main girl the two boys hung out with and ended up having a kid. Said kid turned out to be his best friend Mitsuru. Oh yeah, and by the way, he became the scientist who prevented the double riders' brainwashing. 'Cause that's a thing. So yeah, the ending will make your head explode if you think too hard about it. First of all, one can easily just explain as more or less when the Deno and crew arrived after the first incident, and more or less the metal being left behind, that created a new history, so now he would always stay in the past when they came back in time, essentially creating a stable time loop. But Man, is that some plot. Ending about Mitsuru's missing father. Duh, like, making him a scientist that tries to fix the Double Riders. That's fine, that's okay. That is not the worst case of a timey-wimey bee. Making him his best friend's father crosses the line of questions I don't know how to handle without going into a drunken stupor. And that's technically the end. And we don't go back to fix history. It just ends there, and that's how people will say, well, you know, they probably did it off screen, and none of this ever happened again. Yeah, but they don't show it, so this is either completely non-canon, or the show itself is non-canon, and it's just a movie. A painfully average movie. It's not gonna matter mechanically. It is probably the most meh film, and there have been worse Tyson movies. Let's just move on to the last one. So that leaves us with O's wonderful, the Shogun and the 21 core medals, which, you know, after this last two, it kind of just feels meh. And so it's another sort of non-canon adventure because all the Greeks show up, but Ankh is still technically on the hero side, even though in the show he betrays them. But no more time stuff like this. Anywho, Kogami is once again deciding to more or less play with life itself as he's gone into a position to unearthing the location of one of the first to achieve the legendary medals. And of course, him being him, decides not to leave it being him. Let's open, causing a whole bunch of cell medals to burst into a tower and cause barriers to form over Japan and flip certain locations over. Oh, don't worry, no one's dead. So everyone related this goes to investing. Jade and the mysterious thing. A new figure shows up and steals all the medals from all the degrees and makes his claim become the new O's and rule over the world. This is revealed to be Gara, an alchemist who had previously worked to create the core medals and is now currently holding Kogami inside, captive and collecting human desires for his plot. And more or less the whole world flipping turns out to essentially be time travel. You have got to be kidding me. Anywho, AG, Ankh, and Hinar end up being sent to the Edo period and more or less have to find a way back to their home to more or less stop Gara. So, this is perfectly fine popcorn film. I was kind of concerned that we were going to have the standard demonized future, but that's thankfully put to a quick rest, and it's a decently recreated Edo period village. That includes, of course, Kosera, because there are just some things that exist forever. Don't hate a child actor. That's often a good thing when you don't hate a child actor. Actor got attacked along because he lost his mother, and wanna guess what happened to the mother? Just make a guess. I'll give you time to make a guess, and then I will state it. Yeah, she got possessed by God, so she can have her. And four, which, you know, considering the last tag along, kids decided to let's flip them. Time, space, continue. From infinite amounts of middle fingers. I almost want to give this kid a pass. Gara is fine as standard rule the world villains. He kind of has a gaudy human, having a fun kind of over the top way with the monster form having a more simple design as a humanoid dragon before he becomes giant CGI dragon. But you know, I've watched so many Toku films where they just introduce a villain, give them zero to no backstory at a bare minimum, So sometimes, well, it's just getting a decent amount feels nice. And I gotta give props to the movie. Eiji's way of stopping Gaara's plan is one of the more interesting uses of desire the series has going for it. I do like a lot of the action. This is done. Here, Borze's cameo does a good job of showing what that series may end up doing. Burakawani's fight against the Nue, where he's good, but I really do feel like the finale is kind of like showing up all the suits being used at one time is really really one of the highlights, I think, of these films. That is really amazing that was not done until this film. The big issue I think this film just has, like, it doesn't really give much for Date and Goto to do. They're just kind of on the side. Like, don't really do much. I guess they're just kind of here because, well, Date was really popular. And more or less they did have some funny stuff going on with them. And, anything else? I sort of like the joke about Eiji having a taco metal stuck to his foot the whole time in Ank's reaction. It's stupid, yeah, but it's more or less funny. So, yeah, not much to talk. This is, in terms of all the films, it's perfectly fine. And it's probably the best, but it's probably not something you're going to want to watch. And yeah, unless you really are in need of more O's material and can't wait until we more or less get subbed versions of the 10-year later movie, I guess you could do worse. So yeah, that's it. Channel, past videos, comment, subscribe, notify, and the Ninja. Yeah, we're doing a Ninja next if you weren't guessing that.